Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the St. Mark's Kids Chat. Our lesson for today comes to us from chapter 2 of our Bible study, which is called Above All Else. Our whole church is actually going through this study, and our pastor is also going to be preaching on it during these next couple of weeks, and our kids' chats are going to be focused on it as well. So on chapter 2, we learned about what's called sinful humanity. So last week, we learned about how God created everything, right? Including us, and that how he created us what's called in his own image. So what does that mean? That we're
like him.
Like him, right? Created in his own image. So how are we like God?
We have the same hands, face.
Well, Jesus looked a lot like us, right? You know, so he was all man, well, he was fully man and fully God at the same time, right?
Hair,
so he did look
brain.
like us. Yes, Jesus did look like us, you know, from the humans part of things. But we also have other qualities that make us like God. So can you think of some other ways that we are also created in the image of God? Can you think of anything else other than just how we physically looked like, kind of like Jesus, right? What else?
That we think kind of like him.
Yeah, exactly. So he gave us intellect, right?
A brain.
He gave us intellect so that we can think, right? And he also gave us a heart so that we can love. Does God love us?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, he sure does. And he also gave us will, right? So we can make decisions. He gave us knowledge of righteousness and holiness, right? So that we can recognize those things. But you know what? Something happened, right? Something happened. And what happened that made it to where it was really hard for us to recognize if we were doing something right or wrong? What was that called?
The fall.
The fall, right? And so who was the first person who sinned? What was his name?
Adam.
Yes, you're right. So Adam and Eve, they were the first people who sinned. And so what does it mean to sin? What does sin mean?
Like disobey God.
Like disobeying God, exactly. It means that you're disobeying God. And so basically, you know, they chose to sin, right? Mm-hmm. So, you know, the serpent, Satan, he tempted them, right? And said, you should eat this, you know, fruit from the knowledge of the tree of good and evil, right? Mm-hmm. And tricked them in a way. But could they have said no?
Yes.
Yes, they chose to sin, exactly. So, you know, everything was perfect. You know, they were perfect. God had created them perfectly. And then now they lost that, what was called that divine image, right? Of being able to, you know, recognize right from wrong. So sin in and of itself is basically lawlessness, right? So in 1 John 3 through chapter 3 verse 4, it says very, very blatantly, sin is lawlessness. So it means you're breaking the law. So let me ask you something. Other than Adam and Eve, who sins?
All of us.
All of us. We all sin, right? So let me ask you something. Do little infant babies, are they sinful? Yes, they are born into sin. It's called original sin, right? So they are born into sin. So how do we sin? How do we know what is sinful?
Don't be gods, believe in every god, idols.
Right, exactly. So, you know, we sin in our thoughts. We sin in the things that we want, our desires, right? We sin in our words when we say bad words, right? We sin in our actions when we do wrong things,
like
right?
Like take the Lord's name in vain by saying, oh my.
Yes, exactly. So anything that goes against what God's laws are is called sin. So how do we know what God's laws are?
The 10 Commandments.
The 10 Commandments, exactly. So the 10 Commandments here, you know, Moses, this is Moses right here. You know, he was given the 10 Commandments on these two little stone tablets, and then he brought it down and then told everybody else what God's laws were. So that was one way that we knew what God's laws were, right? And so what are God's laws intended to do for us?
keep us safe.
Yes, keep us safe, right? And kind of keep us in the boundaries of knowing what is right and wrong, right? Yeah, exactly. It teaches us how to live, right? So the 10 Commandments, God explained this to Moses, and then Moses, then he explained it to all of the Israelites. And then, throughout, the rest of time, God spoke to the prophets. And then Jesus also spoke with the apostles, right? When he was there on earth. And then they wrote it all down in the Bible, right? In our Bibles, so that we know how to live our lives, right? So we know what God is wanting us to do, right? And how to live our lives, right? So let me ask you, what is the punishment for when we break those laws?
We go to hell.
Yes, exactly. So the punishment is death, right? So it's physical death and eternal death, right? What does eternal death mean? What do you think? Eternal means forever, right? So eternal death means that you're separated from God forever, exactly. So, but what are we to do now, right? What do we do now that we know all these things and we know that we're sinful and we can't do anything? What do we need?
God.
What is his name?
Jesus.
Jesus. Yes, we need Jesus in our lives, right? So enter Jesus. He is the one that saves us from our sin, right?
Yep.
So God's laws, right? God's laws, right? That we know about from in the Bible, that God's laws help us recognize and reveal our sins so that we can understand, what we're doing right and wrong. But Jesus shows us that grace and that love when we do sin. Because are we going to be perfect all the time? No, we can't be perfect all the time. That's why Jesus came, right?
Even for a day.
Yeah. But you know what? Sometimes, let me ask you, is it hard to recognize sin? Yeah. Sometimes we do things, right?
Like you say a bad word, but you think it's not really a bad word.
Right, exactly. So we're going to do a quick demonstration. I want you guys to come on down here with me. Have a seat. And we're going to do a quick little demonstration about this, okay? So like you just said, it's sometimes hard to recognize sin, right? So let me ask you something. Do you think you'll be able to tell the difference between hot water and cold water? You guys see what I have here? Yeah. So I have hot water. Why don't you feel the outside of it real quick? Feel the outside. Can you feel that it's hot? Feel this one now. Does it feel cold? This one over here? Yeah. And then this one's room temperature, right? So generally, we have what's called the 5 senses for us to be able to recognize something, right? So, okay. Yeah, hold on once. You can put your hands down. All right. So sometimes, when we're trying to recognize our sin, our feelings get in the way, right? So we think that we're, feeling hot and we're feeling cold and all of these things and we're feeling them, right? But sometimes, like I said, our feelings and our bodies get in the way of being able to recognize it. Just like sometimes our bodies are not able to recognize sin and our feelings get in the way of that. So here's what I want you to do. Max, why don't you stand up here real quick? I'm going to have you stick your little fingers out right here, okay? I want you to put your finger all the way up until here in the hot and then the cold one. And then sorry, I'll have you do it, okay? So stick your finger in there. Can you feel it? Is it hot? Really hot? Okay, now quickly stick them in here. Do they feel different? Isn't that interesting? I want you to do it again. So put your finger in here. Your finger should feel hot and then cold. And you're putting it into the same cup, right? Should it feel the same or does it feel different? Does one finger feel different than the other? It does, right? Here, let's have Sawyer try it. Sawyer, come on over here. Okay. So it feels different, right? So put your arm head down here real quick. So it's hot, kind of hot, right? All right, then stick it in here. Does this finger feel warm now and this finger feel cold? Yeah, but you're putting it into the same room temperature water. Isn't that interesting? So it reminds us, that God understands us better than we understand ourselves, right? So try it again. Keep going. So God understands us better than we understand ourselves, right? And our senses can't always be trusted, right?
How?
We're easily fooled. So just like with this hot and cold water, you put it into the hot and cold water, and then you think that, whoa, I should be feeling the exact same temperature when I put it in here. But what's happening is your senses are getting in the way, right? We're easily fooled, and we sometimes don't know right from wrong, okay? So what can we do to try and recognize right from wrong? Who do we have to turn to?
God.
We have to turn to God. We have to turn to Jesus, right? And we have to make sure that we believe in Jesus so that he can save us from our sin problem, because our sin is not always easily recognized. All right, everybody, have a good day. Bye-bye.